Welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. All right, welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast. I am here today with Amos Troester from Garnavillo, Iowa. Amos, how are you, man?
We're doing good, John. We're doing good.
I'm going to ask Amos to give a little introduction of himself today, and then we are going to talk about managing time, and specifically a concept promoted by a guy named Dan Martell called buying back your time. So Amos, give us a little background, then we'll jump into it.
Yep. So we're located in Northeast Iowa up here. Garnavillo, Iowa is our local town. We own a cover crop business as well as a cattle. Part of the business is cattle, two different segments there, and then we kind of break it down in there with multiple different classes. I run the business with my wife, Tina. We got three little ones, and we got 3 full-time guys now that are all on board and just doing some cool things here in Northeast Iowa, just kind of off the chart stuff, but we sure as heck enjoy doing what we're doing. So
awesome. And I've been up to visit your place here in the last couple of weeks, and we had a great visit, and the country around you is absolutely gorgeous. You're right over the hill from the Mississippi River, where big old barges of grain go north and south.
Yeah, no, driftless region is what they call it up here, and just a lot of topography changes, a lot of soil type changes, but beautiful country.
A lot of soil.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk about time management. I want to ask you some questions, kind of your progression of your thinking about time management over the course of your career. You've been doing this for a couple of years, and I think you've learned some valuable lessons along the way. So let's jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we look at time and that word, we can't get back time. And if there's a way that we can expedite time, boy, it's sure value. And when I look at that, how can we expedite time? What are examples of that? Amos, you say expedite time. How can I do that? Well, for one, when you look at, I always think of the Mark Twain, quote of good decisions come from experience and experience comes from bad decisions. Well, I can confidently tell you that there's been people that I've ran into that they were trying to do the same thing we're doing, or, maybe different thoughts and stuff. But as you get the connections made and you talk to them and you learn through their bad decisions, essentially their experience, and you almost just, you take that time that you would have potentially spent making that same mistake or whatever. And now we've moved up and we can eliminate that downfall and just spinning that wheel and just move ahead and be progressive and, keep going. Another thing with time, and I'll be honest, John, these cattle have extremely taught me a whole different concept of time management. And, take an example. So if we got a group of stocker calves and we find that we got the overvalued sitting there, we can go ahead and, sell that calf. And let's just say that, you sell the 600-pound heifer calf for $2,600, right? And you got the opportunity, you can go buy maybe a 700-pound heifer calf back for maybe at the same money or less. That not only did you advance your weight gain, but now you just essentially that extra 100 pounds that maybe would have took you, 40 days or 50 days or wherever, it depends on how your gain is. But in that transaction, you just essentially bought yourself some time. And with the cows, we've learned pretty quickly that, as we look at the managing these cows and their gestational periods and stuff, if you can advance time through those trimesters, take a cow that, one that I really screwed up on, we had here a couple of years ago, I had a group of cows and they were older cows. And, the market was telling us at the time, the weigh-up cow was worth X amount of dollars. And, there wasn't really a lot of value to get her bred. And we elected to not put a bull on them. We ended up, they were pairs. And fast forward 3 months and, here we are sitting here with these open cows. And at that point, the market had moved and told us to sell the bred cow. Boy, that cost us some opportunity just because the bull would have been cheap to throw in with them. You're left with either an open cow or a bred cow, but at least you got the option, right? So time and in the other sense too, for us, hiring good people, your employee base. So when I look at the things that I can do every day and the things that you can do every day, right? We both got 24 hours to do it. But when you hire good people to work for you and help you and trust in your business, boy, you can get a lot of things done in a shorter amount of time. And that time is valuable. I mean, it's incredibly valuable to, get back with your family or just spend more time enjoying maybe some other things that instead of working this, 5:30 in the morning till midnight kind of deal. But we've done that. Not saying
Even though we love that.
oh yeah, I mean my wife gets after me when we do it, but to me it's kind of an adrenaline rush. You just get a lot of stuff done. But that's the thing is what's actually productive and what's just making work, right? Or finding work. So we've learned to have, just have good people around. And the other thing that we've started doing too, and we've seen this really pay dividends throughout the weeks, tactically and in the business. We'll sit down. We just got done here this afternoon before we jumped on here with you. We do a Friday afternoon meeting cadence. And there's times of the year where we somewhat neglect that because we're so darn busy with different seasonality things. But we really see when we sit down, put that plan together, identify the time slots of which stuff's going to be done that following week. Boy, we just have a successful week and everybody's on the same page. Everybody kind of knows where everybody's going. So, and I think that just goes back to the structure of planning. Planning's huge. As you sit there and think about today, tomorrow, down the road, 5, 10 years. I know when you were up here, you helped us, that vision looking forward. We kind of changed our vision or our mission a little bit. My wife's the further out there thinker, and I'm kind of here and now and, maybe tomorrow. But to have those big goals and those big plans, back to the time deal, if you got your, you got it figured out kind of where you're headed, we can save a lot of time in making those wrong mistakes.
So literally, driving to the right destination becomes a multiplier of your time, right? Because you take out the stuff that's extraneous to that.
Absolutely. Well, as you're going to that destination, there's always going to be these tangents.
Oh, and good tangents most of the time, right?
Yeah, right. You're going to drag you off and kind of lose your vision of where you're headed. And another thing that I've learned with this time management deal and where it's really, I guess, to the cover crop piece where it's really paid dividends there when we talk about, a fall seeded cover crop. And back in the traditional thinking, before we were doing that and before we were grazing that rye in the spring, we'd always seed something in the spring. And now I look at it, it's like when we got a cereal rye cover crop growing in, say, March 10th, right? And the other option was to wait to seed that till April 15th. Well, we got a month's worth of growth already started there. So we're already planning ahead, 6-8 months out there. And that's something too that I work with our cover crop customers. We sit down and we do that fall plan with the cover so that we just don't make that mistake. We got the plan set up. We're going to determine how we're going to terminate and all that stuff maybe in the spring. But planning and timing and it all correlates together. We can really be successful when we got a strong plan.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. The thing, and what you're talking about reflects my experience, which is two sort of opposing ideas. The first one is I feel absolutely overwhelmed with opportunity. We live in a world with almost unlimited opportunity for most of us. If you're a reasonably intelligent person who's willing to get out and work, like there is one good opportunity after another. The opposite of that is also true, which is we are ultimately constrained by our time, right? I can't add a minute to my life. I can't add a minute to your life. Now, there are things like CPR, which might occasionally add some time when we need it. But overall, we have the same 24 hours in a day, right? And the things you're talking about, whether it's, eliminating the waste, whether it's planning so that we're being as effective as we can, making sure we're going to the destination we want to go to, being as effective as we can. Those are huge factors that sort of determine our success and our ability to live between those two kind of somewhat opposing truths, right?
Absolutely.
Bob Metzger talked a lot about the ultimate opportunity cost is our time. Okay. The most valuable thing we have is our own time. And I'll just say, for somebody like you and me, we both have young kids. If we're out goofing around just wasting time, right, we are literally taking time away from our family. And so we better be using that time away from our family well. I want to get into this concept of sort of stacking value of time and that opportunity cost. And so I guess I'm curious from your mind, how do you think about the opportunity cost of your time? And for example, with the couple of guys you've got working for you, how do you prioritize their activities? How do you prioritize your activities to produce the most value?
Absolutely. So we actually started using what's called an app called Slack, and it's just I'll call it a task manager is how I would kind of look at that.
And then it's kind of combined with a texting or a messaging type app, right? So
Yeah, pretty
you have
similar.
tasks
So
and then you have communications
yeah,
around those.
so
Yeah.
we can create what's called channels in Slack, and then we can communicate through those channels. Like we got one that's let's just call it there's cattle treatments. If somebody goes out and spot treats something, at least we all know when that was done, and right in our hands. But what I figured out with that, and I think we got to step back here a second, and when we talk about in the business with our employees, I think sometimes there's this misconception where, the low guy on the totem pole has to do the grunt jobs or those jobs that nobody wants to do, right? It's not the point that they're not at the low guy at the totem pole. Our totem pole, how I look at it, is a pretty level playing field, right? We all exist here as a team. We work together as a team. We tackle our challenges and our tasks as a team. But you just got different individuals that they're better at this, or they're better at that, or as I sit here and I was watching cattle sales today, that's something I can do, or my time is valuable. Where the guys, they're out moving cattle around, or maybe doing something in the seed shed, mixing seed, or whatever. But as you really hone in on your employees and what their strengths are, you can really make them extremely valuable, not only to the business, but to themselves, because they're passionate about something. And I'm not going to take one of my guys that, maybe doesn't have a lot of mechanic experience and ask him to do that, because he's going to spend 5 hours when my guy that does most of my mechanic stuff, it's going to take him a half an hour, right? So it's by design, you put the right people in the right place, and we can shrink that clock back and go, I tell my guys all the time, like, this for me, if I stepped in to do that, it would take me longer than what's going to take you, because this is your role. This is something you're good at. And I found myself oftentimes looking at a task that I'm like, I could sit here and beat my head against the wall doing this, but I know they can do it better than I can. So just putting those people in the right place really pulls that time clock down. And when you got that organization put together, and that's something we're going to work on here a little bit within our business, and really build out a strong organizational chart as to where everybody sits and what their role is. And it's not, again, to say, well, the grunt jobs is this lower on the totem pole type situation. No, it's to define where everybody exists, so that way we know how to communicate and talk, and who do I call, who's in charge of this, or who's above me on this to make a decision, right? And I tell my guys all the time, like, make the decision in the best interest of, first of all, your safety if you're out doing something, but also, make the decision, what's going to be the outcome of this? We always look at consequences. Because there again, I'll give you an example. We had a little mistake here a couple of years ago. Diesel fuel got put in a hydraulic tank on a skid loader. One of our guys did that. And when he called me about it and we talked about it, I said, I'm not really upset that you did it. I'm more upset that we're going to lose 4 hours of time tomorrow morning draining that tank out. That was more valuable to me. So it goes along with a lot of things in life. When you look at your opportunity of the decisions you're about to make, there's going to be things behind that. And what's that going to affect? Is that going to affect our cash? Is it going to affect our daily routine? Like, what's that influencing? That's going to play a big role in that time management piece down the road.
Yep. RanchRite exists for one simple reason: better numbers lead to better decisions. We work with producers on cash flow, debt management, enterprise analysis, risk management, and long-term financial strategy, so the business stays resilient no matter the market. If you want to see whether that's the right fit for your operation, book a discovery call at ranchritellc.com. Okay, so let's talk some specific examples. And the fun part about when we talk about time as an opportunity cost, we talk about money as an opportunity cost. The parallel is perfect in my mind, because a dollar can't be in two places at once. There's quantum physics, I know, which argues that, the opposites can be whatever. But in reality, you can't really be in two places at once, and a dollar can't be in two places at once. We're going to pivot here in a minute and talk a little about focus. But I really want to emphasize this point that many of us are running around trying to multitask, thinking that we're getting more than one thing done. And Bud used to always call that multi-failing. And I think that is the best description, because it has been proven over and over again in studies that if you are doing more than one thing at a time, you are not doing either one of those things very well. And the sad part is a lot of people who can function at a very high level can get away with multitasking while they're doing it, but they're actually devaluing the time they're spending, right? So we're going to come back to focus here before we wrap up. But let's use an example. You've spent part of the day today watching cattle sales and getting cattle bought in different parts of the country. What's the financial value to your business of that time? And we can use round numbers. Doesn't have to be perfect, but give an idea.
Yeah. So just sitting here today, I mean, watching these sales right here and now, that was worth about a $40,000 bill to me today to sit here and do that and stay focused. And
How many hours are we talking?
I started watching them deals this morning about 9:30, and I just quit here at about 3:30, I suppose. So 6 hours.
Okay. So a pretty easy $6,500 an hour. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to be out mixing seed during that same point, what's the cost of that? Or let's say there was a broken post in your front yard, or you had a flat tire on the pickup and you had to be outside changing it. How do we figure the opportunity cost of doing that?
Yeah. So that, let's just say it costs us $500 for whatever situation we want to talk about. We can pick out an example, right? I would rather be sitting here and write the check for $500 than deal with the situation, right?
You're thrifty like I am, so I know you don't want to write a check for $500. But does it make sense for you to go spend an hour changing a tire and give up the $6,500 for the hour instead of paying someone $500? If you pay the $500, your hour is still worth $6,000.
Yeah. And I think this is the concept that we're talking about of just we're not going to step over dollars for pennies. I mean, you still need to be conscious and frugal and understand your costs and shave where you can shave. But boy, when it comes down to that hour of time and where your money's best spent at, and I'll take it another way. And I think this is maybe the direction you wanted to go with the focus piece. But I've noticed now that we got really good crew here, really good team. My head is clearer when I sit down and I do this, and I'm on the phone and I'm making decisions with our vendors or our customers or whatever the case may be. We've designed this deal where everybody understands their role. They're focused in their role, which allows me to, because I trust them, right? And that's a big word, trust, right? I trust my guys, and that allows me, building that trust with them allows me to maintain better focus on what's right here and where my value is coming from.
Yep. And conversely, it allows them to focus on where their value is coming from, right?
Yeah. Well, and when you look at it with your, with your team or your employees, like if you're always going to be looking over their shoulder, do you think that they're going to be confident in what they're doing? Do you think that they're going to stay focused on what they're doing? Because you're always going to be checking on what they're doing, right? So it's a deterrent, really. Like I said, we're going to have learning opportunities all the time.
And by that, you mean things that are not quite right, right?
Right.
Right.
And but John, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not learning, what's the point in keep going forward? I hope I learn something every day the rest of my life, whether it's personally, business, whatever. You need to learn every day something. Pick up some knowledge somewhere from somebody or something.
Love it. Okay, so I want to put a final point on this and then we can wrap up. If you don't have that team and you are taking yourself away from those most valuable tasks, you are hurting your business. Is that a fair assessment? You are capping your business, right? You are limiting your business. We often get the question, how much can I afford to pay so-and-so for, to hire someone? The question in my mind is always, what would you do in the time that you freed up? So if I have a if I have a task I do, I'm the one that goes out and fixes the gate. What am I giving up in order to do that? Well, if I have to pay someone, $150 a day, $500 a day, whatever the number is, $1,000 a day, how does that compare to what I can add? Now, if I hire somebody for $1,000 a day to fence, and I go sit on the couch, I'm not getting ahead. That's costing me. That doesn't add value to anybody. If I am able to say, okay, because he's doing that for $1,000 a day, I can go do $6,000 an hour work at the sale barn. Now we've added to the business, right? We've made the pie higher. We have increased our gross product. And I want to make sure that people understand that replacing value and everybody working at their highest value assumes that you as the leader of the business are also doing that. Whether you're the manager, whether you're the marketer, whether you're the, whatever, you have to be stepping up your game in order to allow people to continue, sort of pushing the business forward. So the part you were talking about continuing ed, I would say, if we agree that right now your time is worth about $6,500 an hour, in 10 years from now, I expect it to be much higher than that. Right. And maybe you've even replaced that role, which is your current highest value. Maybe there is another role for you 5 or 10 years from now, or 3 years from now, whatever, that is worth $20,000 an hour. Well, now we just keep working our way up. You're a relatively young man. You got started in business for yourself as a relatively young person. You've got a 40-year career. If you are staying at the same level over that whole 40 years, you are shortchanging yourself and your business very significantly.
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to, and we talk about this with our guys, knowing your self-worth. You have to know what you're worth. And I think, as I've been around different businesses and different ranches and farms, and by no means calling anybody out, but, it's like we talk about all these costs, but we don't ever want to talk about the labor that it took to do it. Like when you were physically out there doing some of that stuff, well, what did you charge for for you being in that piece of equipment, or what did you charge for you being involved in that? It's like, well, I don't know, $10, $15 an hour. You might as well go to town and get a job.
Correct. Our local car wash will pay a teenager $20 an hour plus partial benefits to work at the car wash.
Absolutely.
I've volunteered to my wife. I'll head there. Like, that sounds great. Sounds great.
Yeah. No, you got to know your worth, John. I mean, that's just at the end of the day, you got to know where your time is best spent and just grind with it.
Over and over again, we learn that the best business managers, the best business leaders are excellent at asset allocation. Time is an asset. Spending your time, spending your people's time on the most effective things that generate the most value is what creates the most successful businesses. And what's really cool about it is most people, when they are working in an area of very high value, derive incredible satisfaction from producing value. We all talk about our desire and our enjoyment of working hard, but most of us would much rather work hard and win, right? Work hard and provide a lot of value than we would just dig the same hole or roll the same rock up the hill, Sisyphus style, over and over again, right?
Right. Didn't Albert Einstein say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same results?
Yep. Expecting different results. Yes. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right?
Expecting different results, yeah. Right. Right.
Cool. Yeah. Very good. All right. Anything we've missed?
No. I think we've come a long ways, and I mean, I used to do that run, and yeah, if we're gonna design a business that's gonna be successful, we gotta keep it organized and keep it straight and keep it clean
and keep leveling it up. It's got to keep getting better. Very good. Amos, thanks for joining me today. Where do people find you?
They can find us on Facebook, TA Cattle and Covers LLC. Find us online at tacattlecompany.com. Sure can reach out, or if they want to contact you or whatever to get in touch with us, any of those 3 ways is great. So we enjoy talking with folks and trying to, again, we talked about adding value. We love helping add value to their businesses as much as possible. So
love it. Well, thank you, sir. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, John. Appreciate it.
Bye. Thank you for tuning into the Ranchnomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.